Hello and welcome. Have you ever purchased a reclining chair that you had problems with from day one? Not that there was necessarily anything broken on the chair, but for some reason maybe you couldn't manage to get comfortable in it, or you had trouble operating it easily or consistently. Or maybe you had a chair that you really loved, was very comfortable, but as time went on it became less and less comfortable till eventually you couldn't stand it any longer and you got rid of the chair. Well, if any of those scenarios sound familiar to you, or if you just want to avoid them when you purchase your next new recliner, stay tuned. We're going to cover those topics and more tips on how to buy the recliner that's right for you. It doesn't really matter how nice a chair looks on the showroom floor or how many cool features it has. If you're not comfortable in the chair and you can't operate it easily, without those two things, you're not going to be happy with that recliner. So that's where we're going to start, with proper fit and function, coming right up. Probably the single most important thing concerning fit is the depth or length of the seat. You want that to match pretty closely with your upper leg length. So do you need a tape measure to figure that out? No. Simply do this. Sit with your hips all the way back against the back of the seat. Let me demonstrate. Now, if when you do that, it turns out that your leg does not reach the floor, it's splayed out a little bit, that means this seat is too deep for your leg length, and you need to find a shorter seat. Or, and I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit so you can see it, if when you sit all the way back, there's a space up here behind your lower leg. This means the opposite, of course, that your leg length is too long for the seat's too short for you, and you need to find a longer seat. Now that's the single most important thing. When you find the fit that works, usually the nose of the seat cushion will catch you behind the knees, and you'll also have enough leg length left over so that you reach the floor comfortably, particularly if you have a recliner that rocks, like this one. Now some people make the mistake and they purchase a recliner where their feet just barely reach the floor. And that's not a good idea, and I'll show you why. Because what happens over time is your padding will break in. And over time your position in the chair will change a bit. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But one of the areas that breaks in is this lumbar padding. And this determines how far back you sit in the seat. So as you can imagine, as time goes by, and this compresses a bit here, you're actually sitting slightly further back in the seat than you did when the chair was new. So if your feet barely reached the floor when the chair was new, you're going to find them coming off the floor later on. So keep that in mind and find a chair where your feet reach the floor very easily. Okay, another factor is the width of the seat. Now this is actually a larger chair, a lazy boy recliner. And sometimes I see smaller people in chairs like these, and when they go to reach the handle, they do this tremendous stretch. And it's almost like watching someone do gymnastics just to try to open or close the chair. You know, you want something that's easy to operate, so you don't want a chair that's that wide that you're going to have to do gymnastics. If you have to lean or bend a little bit to open the chair, not a big deal. But obviously you don't want a big stretch. So if you find yourself doing that to operate the chair, get a narrower seat. Next, we'll take a look at proper back fit. Okay, so after you have the seat fit dialed in, the next thing to check is the back. Now, it's real simple with the back. You just want to sit back, try the recliner in different positions, and you want to make sure that in all positions you're comfortable. And you want to achieve what I'll call a neutral position. Okay, well, what is that? Well, by neutral I mean your head, neck, shoulders, and in your entire back are kind of cradled and supported uniformly. Okay, you're not feeling any padding that's bulging or pushing or like forcing your head forward, for example. Or, on the other hand, you don't want to have any areas where you feel there's not enough support. If you do have those problems, then one of two things apply here. Either the back height is the wrong size for your body type, or the way they've configured the padding in the back or in channels is not the right size for you. So if that's the case, move on and try another chair. I spoke earlier about people who purchased chairs that were very comfortable at first, but later became very uncomfortable and they ended up getting rid of those chairs. Let's talk a little bit more about that. The two primary comfort areas are the seat padding and the back padding, and it's natural over time for those areas to break in and compress. When the compression gets to be too much, you'll notice you'll begin to have problems with pain and discomfort, okay? So that's when you need to take some action. Now, as far as the backs are concerned, there is a type of back out there that's like 3 horizontal pillows or channels for you do-it-yourselfers. And they're made in such a way that they flip up. Each pillow will flip up and there's a zipper that accesses the padding for each section on the back. So that's one easy way if you're a do-it-yourselfer. You might want to check out the comfort of those chairs to see if they suit you, because they're easy to maintain as far as the padding is concerned. However, when the padding in the seat begins to break down, two things happen. Number one, you start sitting lower in the chair. And for people that have trouble getting in and out of their recliners, that worsens that problem because they're lower and lower as the padding continues to compress over time. Another thing it does is when you sink lower in the chair, your position against the back also lowers. So sometimes people will develop neck pain or other back issues when it's actually the breakdown of the seat cushion that's causing the problem. So if you're having trouble determining what's going on in your case, whether it's the seat, the back padding, or both, consult an experienced upholsterer or an experienced repair specialist to help you diagnose where the padding issues need to be corrected. Because in the end, if you found that perfect fit and comfort initially for your chair, it can be repadded to bring that back and get you more life and use out of it. All right, so you've got the proper fit for the seat and the back. Before we finish up here, you want to check one more thing, the height of the seat from the floor. This is a concern for people that have difficulty getting in and out of reclining chairs. Here are some options to consider. A lot of manufacturers that make a lot of recliners will make a recliner that's a bit taller than their standard recliner, so check into that. Also, some make a base that's a little taller that can be installed on their standard recliners to raise you up a bit. But keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, over time the padding on the seat will break in and you will actually be sitting a little bit lower. So if you have concerns about using any of those chairs, you might want to consider going with a lift chair, because not only will it solve that seat height problem, but lift chairs are also typically recliners as well. Now let's look at the different options you have for how to operate your chair. One category are the cable release recliners with the parachute pull. And this is a flush mount handle that mounts on the outside arm panel. It's also a cable release. And last but not least, the good old push button, which also mounts here. Probably the easiest one in my opinion is the push button, because you simply press it or punch it and the footrest flies open. Now that's the good part. It's easy to operate. The downside is to close the footrest on those units, you have to have good leg strength and coordination, because it takes your legs to do all the closing. So if you try out some of these cable release models and you find out that you're having difficulty in getting that footrest closed or latched and you have to make several attempts, it's not the right one for you. You might want to consider a solid handle. With these, you rely on arm strength with the solid handle units, so you don't require the leg strength or coordination of the cables. And of course there's the power reclining option as well. If you don't have arm strength or leg strength, or if you just don't want to do the manual recliner thing, go with power. Nice thing about the power recliners is you can stop the footrest at any point, so you can achieve a lot of different foot elevations. Also, of course, there's massage and there's heat. Just make sure that those units work the way you expect them to if you go with those options. Make sure they're located in the right place and they do the job that you need them to do. Otherwise, you can just invest in a more inexpensive, portable heat massage pad that you can position the way you need it and save some money on your recliner. Now, the downside with the power units, there are two primarily. Number one is there are going to be cords and cables underneath your chair, and those can often get stuck in the base, or if you have a rocker base unit, or the mechanism itself, and can get damaged easily. So you always need to be on the lookout from them whenever you're moving the chair, like if you have to move furniture or if you're just vacuuming. When you put things back, you have to check and make sure those cables and cords are away from areas where they can become damaged. That's the first thing. And the second thing, of course, is there are more parts that can fail, more electrical components. On most power chairs, you have an activation button or hand wand, power supply, at least one lift motor, and of course if you go with heat and massage. And these are all things that can fail over time. So that's something to consider as well. Now that you have the fit and function dialed in, last but not least, style. Now is the time to pick your favorite material, your favorite color, leather if you want leather, if you want a chaise seat, and so forth. But make sure that those things are all on a chair that is comfortable and that works for you. And finally, which recliner should you buy? My advice is simple. Buy a name brand recliner from a manufacturer that will supply parts directly to consumers. Not all of them will, so you'll have to check and see if that one does. And here's the reason why you want to do that. Because the dealer where you purchased the chair, let's say 2, 3, 4 years ago, may not be in business. They may no longer handle and service the brand that you purchased. For a number of different reasons, they may not be able to help you with parts. So when that happens, people are often out of luck, and your chair may only be a few years old. So that's why it's important to have a direct connection to the manufacturer that produced your chair and that they supply parts directly to consumers. So if that should happen to you, you'll still be able to get parts and keep your chair in good working condition. So, good luck on buying your next recliner. I wish you success, and I'll see you next time.